Basically, I was reminiscing or thinking about what is actually the end game of AI and AI safety. And are we heading in the right direction? And you can take this as a, is our interpretability tools, are they working? Is RLHF, sufficient or not? But I was thinking, as a philosopher, thought experiment, let's just assume that things are going extremely well beyond our expectations. Are we in the clear? Do we get the beneficial outcomes that we are hoping for? And I think not yet. There is another risk source that we have not adequately dealt with. In short, I believe that the developers of AI pose an extreme risk to us, not in the sense that they might build misaligned AI systems or give access to malicious users to their technology, but they themselves might misuse their technology for, self-interest purposes. And this risk is currently neglected in the landscape, and I think we should pay more attention to it. So what is the goal of AI safety? Roughly, it's dual. There are two purposes. On the one hand, we want to minimize the risk of it, and on the other hand, we want to get all the good outcomes. So OpenAI's charter reminds us that their mission is to build AGI, which they define as highly autonomous systems that can outperform humans at most economically valuable work. But in addition, AGI must also benefit all of humanity. And it's this later aspect where I'm a bit doubtful whether that works out. So the current risk landscape, as an example, Shah and his team from Google DeepMind, they have conceptualized in a paper called A Technical Approach to AGI Safety and Security as follows. So they have 4 different categories. There's misuse, where a user is accessing their AI system to prompt it to, for example, how to build a bomb. And we don't want the AI to provide the instructions for that. Then there is misalignment. So in this case, the AI is not even doing what the designer wants it to do. Then we have mistakes. So here the AI is a bit clumsy, but there's like no foul play at heart. And then there are structural risks, so more the cooperation or coordination problems where no one is at fault. An alternative conceptualization is by Hendricks, who is leading the Center for AI Safety. And similarly, he's also talking about the risk of malicious use. He's specifically talking about terrorist organizations that may use it to build bioweapons. Rogue AI is just another term for misaligned AI. And coming more from a governance perspective, he's also talking about organizational issues. So, for example, you are not protecting your model weights adequately, and then someone snatches them, and then they can do with it whatever they want. And of course, the AI race that incentivizes us to skimp over safety measures. So, but you can see that the main focus is on misuse by external actors and misalignment of AIs. And how can this lead to great harm? Well, there's the bioweapons aspect. Then we can also imagine AI using for offensive cyber attacks, considering how much of our world is digital, like power grids, GPS, supply chains, financial markets. We can easily see how this can lead to widespread harm. And the third category that people are really worried about is persuasion and social manipulation. A couple months back, there was an incident on Reddit where researchers were using AI to influence people on a subreddit called Change My View. And the AIs were doing extremely well. And what stirred the controversy was, well, first of all, no one was informed that they were using AI bots in these discussions. But also they were giving AIs, background of the users, whose opinion they were supposed to change. So they were giving them access to other posts from the users to give them, to allow the AI to infer more characteristics about, gender, religion, political views in order to tailor the message to their target audience. So what do we do about this? And the most prominent approach is, well, we just align AI with human values, the good ones. And then the AI will do the good stuff and not the bad stuff. And in the beginning, we thought, well, that is obviously, we are building ethical machines. ethical reasoning. But then we found out that is a really difficult problem and decided to split that into two extremely difficult problems. On the one hand, we have the technical component that is more prominent on the computer science side. That deals with the question of how do we design AI that acts with the intention of its designer. So think about specification gaming and goal misgeneralization. That are the problems that we deal here with. And on the other hand, we have the normative component, what philosophers are dealing with. So what values and goals should we align AI with? And once we figure out both of these questions, then we just have to combine them and put them in the AI, and we have our happily ever after. Or so we thought, because we treated it as a purely epistemological problem, which makes sense because we are researchers and we just want to research stuff. But what if it's not? And that is where the developer control problem comes in as an homage to the AI control problem. So in this case, we make a wish and we think we have found the solution to the alignment problem. Also the AI race, that might be a reason why we do not implement the optimal solution, but let's just assume that there's only one developer left, whether OpenAI and DeepMind merged, or we decided there should be some kind of international institution that is the only institution allowed to do this. Doesn't matter, but there's only one developer. And the problem is, what if the developer is not misaligned with our values? So far, this always seems to be an implicit assumption that the developers has beneficial motivations and is intrinsically motivated to do good for all of us. So the big problem in this case is that the developer has privileged access to their AI system. And by this, I mean two components. On the one, so basically it's all about internal deployment. And with internal deployment come two features. On the one hand, they have an earlier access to an advanced system compared to the rest of us. And that advanced system gives them, has more capabilities and gives them an advantage. And at the same time, that system can also be deployed with less safeguards. If you deploy it for everyone, then you need to be really sure that people cannot misuse it. On the other hand, if you just deploy it internally, whether that means for all the people in the company or only for a selected few, then you can be more sure that they are not misusing it in ways that are detrimental to you yourself. So you can implement less safeguards. And in opposition to that, we have external deployment, so that's for everyone, that it comes later, and there we have more safeguards. And the problem is right now how we develop these models is that first we have a foundational model, then we have some instruction fine-tuning going on, and then at the very end we have RLHF, where we then try to bring it in tune with our values and where we implement the safeguards. But these models are extremely capable already before RLHF, and they might actually be more capable before RLHF because of something called the alignment text. I'm not sure how big that is, but at least I've heard of that concept that once you align it, the capabilities go down. So there might be all sorts of reasons why you might want to access AI systems with less safeguards. And that seems problematic. So in this scenario, it still works out that we prohibit misuse by external actors, but we have nothing preventing misuse from internal actors. I think that companies have a reason to deal with this problem on their own, because there might be lone wolves or insider threats that are sabotaging their projects. So in ByteDance last year, they had an intern who was apparently maliciously tampering with the model's training task and was then accessing 8,000 GPUs. And it's not clear how big the damage was, but allegedly, or like people were speculating that this was tens of millions of dollars lost. So there's definitely some reason why, even if you're skeptical about whether the whole company is misusing, we can also think on a smaller scale about this type of risk. Yeah, I think that corporations are not the best organization to build human-aligned AI systems, because I think many corporations have exhibited that they themselves are not really aligned with human values. So as an example, Big Oil, they did research back in the 60s, 70s, 80s about the impact of fossil fuels on climate change. And they found, like, yes, burning fossil fuels is bad for the environment, and at the same time they misled the general public, but also people from the government about the impact of their work. Enron, classical case of fraud, so that was just for self-enrichment. Volkswagen, the Dieselgate, where they were systematically tampering with with the test of their cars so that it seems that their cars are better for the environment than they actually were, to escape regulation, or to appear as if they are in compliance with regulation. In 2008, we had the banking crisis, the financial crisis. So here, banks were dealing with risky assets, getting filthy rich. And then when the whole thing came crashing down, and no one wanted to have these toxic assets anymore, and banks were on the verge of going bankrupt, they were simply stating, you know what, actually we are too big to fail. We are systematically relevant. If we are crashing, then the whole economy comes down. And that was then used as a justification to use taxpayer money to bail them out. So a classical case of privatizing gains and socializing losses. And the tobacco companies, so in 1994, CEOs of tobacco companies were invited to the Senate, and they were then asked whether nicotine is addictive, and all of these CEOs were stating, like, no, nicotine is not addictive. And within within several weeks, it came to light, like, yes, of course it's addictive, and they were also well aware of that. So yeah, ample reason to a bit distrustful of corporations. But surely AI is different. We are special, except maybe not so much. So back in 2017, now as part of the lawsuit of Elon Musk against OpenAI, they had to release a trove of emails. And in one of them, Ilya Sutskever wrote to Elon Musk about his concern that Demis Hassabis, so from Google DeepMind, would create an AGI dictatorship. And Ilya, agrees. I'm also concerned about that. And we want to avoid, again, the statement, we want to make the future good and avoid an AGI dictatorship. Then we have Altman, of course, the blip in 2023, where he was fired for 2 days, I think. The board of directors lost confidence in him. It was not like, I think it's still not entirely clear what the reasoning was, but they stated something like he was not consistently candid in his communications. So that was both, they didn't learn about the ChatGPT release. He apparently misconstrued opinions of board members regarding one of the board members. Helen Toners released a report on where she was critical of several AI frontier labs, and he was then apparently making that much worse than it was. And also, like, his handling of Q-Star, whether that was a real project or not, was criticized. So yeah, so even his own board was questioning whether he is the right CEO for this project. And then lastly, we have Elon Musk. I mean, you are probably aware of this. So we have Grok here, which, when asked on the question of do you support Israel or Palestine, was then explicitly considering Elon Musk's views, which might go a bit against the idea of like objective and truthful AI systems, and might hint that Elon Musk might use AI systems that are more aligned with his personal views. So what's the big problem? If corporations have misused, their positions of power in the past, why bother about AI systems? And of course, the problem is that AI as a general purpose technology can be used to concentrate power in all sorts of ways. So one area that is a bit underappreciated are legal capabilities. So we might use AI to find and exploit legal loopholes. So if at one point we find, what these frontier labs are doing, that is not really good, we want to stop them, the natural route would be, well, we are suing them. But if they have really, really good AIs that are, outperforming human lawyers, then we have a trouble being successful in these lawsuits. Of course, they can also use AI to lobby politicians and create desirable policies in the first place. What OpenAI explicitly is aiming for is, make an AI system that can automate tasks in the economy. That just means that they become systematically relevant and too big to fail. Projects where we are like, we need a windfall clause, that if they become so filthy rich, then that we get some of that money. That is not really the issue here. The issue here is that we simply have one gigantic monopole that is supplying all the goods and services that the whole economy needs. And we are in demand of those goods and products, but we have nothing to give back to them. So that just creates a power imbalance. Then, of course, the social manipulation and deception. So if you think that at some point we all agree that what they are doing is bad, that is probably not the case. So there will be, a divided opinion on these matters. Cyber attacks can be used to get more information and to disrupt opposition. Mass surveillance in a similar vein. And physical force, so we already have robots, and there is a company that uses Boston Dynamics, the robot dogs, and attached an arc flamethrower on top, and it costs less than 10,000 in free shipping. Not used to be for harmful purposes, but rather for, for wildfire, that you burn an area and then it can't burn later on. But of course, you can easily see how we can abuse these kinds of powers in all sorts of bad ways. And so even if we take this now seriously and we want to monitor, one of the problems is that AI is an evolving technology and it has surprising properties that we are not aware of ex ante. So one of the papers that was, with less fantastic news was by Hubinger, and they were training an AI model to implement a backdoor. So basically what that means is the idea was, well, if you insert the specific prompt of like current year 2024, then you become malicious. And then they underwent the standard safety training, and you would think like it should now be safe, but actually this backdoor persists. So that means the normal interaction with the AI means everything is going well. You think, we've done it, it's aligned with human values, everything is going well. But then, the person who is aware of the backdoor just uses that and suddenly the AI runs amok. And just to quickly finish this off, some ideas how we might want to mitigate this. Monitoring and logging, how people internally use this AI system might be one. We might limit who can access these models, so that's the principle of last privilege. We can, for specific prompts that go in this dangerous territory, we might implement a multi-party authorization. Red teaming for insider threats, so that is basically, have dedicated teams that work on this problem and improve on this. Independent auditing requirements, so right now that seems all rather voluntary, but we might, make more stern requirements that they have to report on their models. It might also be that they report on their model developments. Hey, we are developing, a new foundation model, because right now we are all speculating. Do they have GPT-5? A very different approach might be we just limit the development of general AI systems, or we might favor a decentralized approach to AI. So right now we have foundation models that, is very naturally inclined to favor concentration. So a decentralized approach to AI would be, limit this kind of problem. But then we have different problems. Hooray. And yeah, lastly, strengthening whistleblower protections, and that seems to be a general good. And with that, yeah, I hope we survive the intelligence explosion and we also deal with the developer problem, because otherwise we just might end up with a t-shirt. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. I forgot to say, the Slido that was used for the previous talk, we can use it for all of the talks that will follow. But so if you have some questions, but maybe not for this talk because we only have a few minutes for questions. So yeah, did somebody type to him? Oh, all right, we are close.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I just wonder, so in case, for example, considering you can align some of like AI developers' value, but like how we can choose the representation, like representative AI developers that could align human values in general. So it's just back to the question side. Like, you know, of course we cannot align all human values, right? But like, you know, how could you do that instead of like, you know, even if some AI developers can be aligned, not all of them, like, most of the value couldn't be, sorry. It's supposed to be like, they could not align all human values in the first place. Yeah.
So your question is about this normative component?
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, it seems really, really tricky. I don't know how to do it for all of humanity. I think what we might have, I mean, we had yesterday a talk on bounded rationality, and like, I mean, I don't have an answer. I mean, you might go different routes of like ethical theories, but all coherent extrapolated volition is another approach by Yudkowsky, where you try to formalize the idea of, you know, what would be my values if I were more intelligent, you know. But all of this is, I don't know, it's not really tangible, if you ask me. Sorry, I don't have a good answer to this. I mean, it's such an open question, and I mean, it's basically the question of like, what's the solution to ethics, right? How should we govern? I think a more reasonable thing to say is like, we haven't figured ethics out, but we live in democracies, right? And like, we find some kind of consensus. So that might be an approach to it, right? So it's not about finding the right values, but we might have a procedure of how we can, you know, come to a consensus which kind of values we should have.
Can you think like, would there be like UN of like AI developers or such thing like this?
Sorry?
Like, could there be an UN like?
UN?
For the AI developers, something like that. Like, you know, we cannot align all human values, but like we can find some approximation.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. I mean, at least we might have some kind of minimal standards, like killing all humans, that is bad, and then hopefully, you know, we can build on top of that and find democracy is good and everybody has equal rights, stuff like that. But yeah, I think that will be an iterative, messy process.
What concretely could we do if we do not work for a frontier AI lab?
Next question. I mean, maybe join the cause, right? I mean, what you're doing here is basically part of the answer, right? Like, you're joining this community, you're raising awareness of this problem. That's good. I don't have the answer. It's a bit related to what Jan was talking about yesterday with the gradual disempowerment. I feel like we are still figuring out many of the problems, but, you know, maybe some of these ideas can, you know, point people in the right direction. So, I mean, build communities. I think people are open to hear about this, like the general public. So there are many avenues, whether you know, are a researcher or you reach out to public outlets.
All right, 2 more quick questions, then we need to run to the next speaker.
Hey, thanks for the talk. It was just, so one of the strategies that you mentioned was the whistleblower. Now, in practice, I've seen it not work so well and people actually don't use it. People are more scared of that, you know, repercussions of what might happen. If they still want to have a career, they just don't do it and move on to the next role that they can go to. So I don't know, have you thought of any strategies from an AI safety point of view that could be thought of to tackle that? Or?
No, but I am aware that there was an open letter on the topic that was also signed by some of the, like Joshua Bengio. So I don't have concrete ideas on how to actually do it. But I mean, I think that OpenAI has like quite strict non-disclosure statements that you need to sign. So they are like, legally obligated not to talk about stuff. So I mean, that would be an obvious avenue to, to have like requirements to lessen these kinds of obligations, right? To give them the freedom. So that does not, yeah, I mean, it lessens the cost of it, right? Like, because right now there's like legal repercussions of doing that. Costs associated with like future career prospects, I mean, they still persist, but like, okay, it's an improvement at the very least. Yeah, exactly.
Hi, thank you very much for the talk. I guess a lot of the people would say the answer to these sort of things, given that the labs don't seem to be slowing down, is open source AI development. But obviously that comes with its own wide raft of safety risks. So how would you view the trade-off between sort of closed, slightly controlled, but also like opaque versus open, uncontrolled, transparent?
Yes, that's a bingo. I just think we are in a really bad spot. On the one hand, you can like give everyone access to super powerful AI systems. That obviously results in a catastrophe. On the other hand, if you just give it to one entity, then they concentrate all the power, and that is like I think at the heart of it, right? Like it's how do we deal with power, and we have not really figured out on a philosophical level how to deal adequately with this. My guess is maybe we can have some equilibrium in between like everyone and just one entity, but it's not clear to me whether that is stable, especially, considering the AI race, right? Like at any point they would have an incentive to further push the capabilities and get ahead of the others. So that doesn't seem like a robust solution either.
Thank you. All right, let's thank Torben again.
Thank you.